The atmosphere cracked like glass when the shuttle touched down. Elias Thorne stepped out into a thick lavender mist that hugged the surface like a jealous lover. Varela 7 hadn't changed much. Same humidity that clung to your skin like a possessive ex. Same distant hum of tectonic energy that made your bones vibrate if you stood still too long. And still no decent coffee. Dex, his AI reconnaissance drone, floated behind him, buzzing softly. It was shaped like a sleek black orb with 6 mechanical arms and an attitude problem. Atmospheric stability at 89%, Dex reported, its voice crisp and smug. Radiation minimal. Air breathable, though it does carry a faint odor of mildew and existential dread. Smells like home, Elias muttered, running a hand through his peppered hair. The helmet stayed clipped to his side, unused. This wasn't a war zone. Not yet. He hadn't meant to come back. That was the funny part, if funny meant emotionally catastrophic. Earth Command had quietly slipped the mission into his dossier under the euphemism Environmental Reacquisition Initiative. He'd recognized the coordinates immediately. Varela 7, the planet that gave him Elira and took her away. He wandered beyond the shuttle's ramp, boots sinking into moss that pulsed faintly with bioluminescent veins. Tall, spiraling trees stretched like frozen lightning bolts, their silver leaves shivering despite the still air. Birds, or what passed for birds here, let out metallic chirps, like a dial-up modem arguing with itself. Nothing had changed, yet everything felt heavier. Denser. Commander, Dex buzzed closer, adjusting its altitude. Your heart rate is elevated. Shall I release a calming pheromone mist? No, Elias said. That crap made me smell like spoiled citrus for 3 days. A rustle behind the foliage made him spin, hand to his hip, out of habit, not for a weapon. He wasn't armed. This was a survey mission, supposedly. He stepped forward. She was standing there, not Elira, but slender, wide-eyed, long ears just like hers, sweeping back past her head like a sculpted wind, hair dark and coiled in loops around gleaming silver bands. Her skin shimmered faintly under the filtered sunlight, a dusky hue with patches of soft iridescence. And those eyes, those same eyes. She looked 12, maybe 13. She looked at him like he was a ghost, and then she said it. My mother always spoke about you, she whispered, voice trembling. She said you had fire in your hands and softness in your eyes. Elias froze. If a planet could hold its breath, Varela 7 would have. Dex naturally chose that moment to interject. Commander, it appears the miner has some historical data regarding your prior engagement. Shall I prepare a DNA test? Or perhaps a cup of tea? Elias blinked. The girl, no, the young woman, was crying. Her lips quivered as she tried to remain still, dignified. Her small fists clenched at her sides. What's your name? He asked carefully. Nyari. He took a slow step forward. Nyari, your mother, was it Elira? She nodded. And that was it. The ground didn't open. The sky didn't fall. But Elias felt like he'd been thrown into the core of a star. He looked down, remembered to breathe. His voice cracked a little. She never told me she had a daughter. She said she didn't get the chance. Nyari's words had the rhythm of something rehearsed 1,000 times in solitude. She waited for you. She thought maybe you would come back. Elias swallowed hard. I didn't know. She died, Nyari said plainly, like a blow delivered and received long ago. A few turns ago, she told me that if I ever saw you, I should tell you not to be afraid. That sounded exactly like something Elira would say, equal parts cryptic and unnecessary. I'm not afraid, Elias said, and immediately realized he was lying. Dex hovered closer, switching to a warmer tone. Sir, may I remind you that your heart rate is now approaching levels typically seen during evasive maneuvers or marriage proposals. Elias waved him off. Not the time, Dex. Forgive me, sir. I thought humor would diffuse the obvious emotional overload. Elias turned to Nyari. Do you live nearby? She nodded. The old city, near the spine trees. It's hidden. Of course it was. Everything important on this planet was always hidden. He exhaled. Will you take me there? She didn't speak, just turned and began walking into the trees. Elias followed. Dex hovered between them like an awkward godparent. I'll notify command that you're engaging in an unplanned detour. Don't, Elias said. Tell them I'm inspecting cultural anomalies. Noted, Dex said. Cultural anomalies with long ears and a grudge. They traveled in silence for a while, passing under ancient arches carved from the planet's living stone. The ruins of the old Virelian settlements emerged slowly from the overgrowth, vines curling around broken towers like sleeping serpents. The path pulsed faintly under Nyari's bare feet, reacting to her presence. I can't believe you're real, she said suddenly, not turning around. I thought maybe she made you up, like a bedtime story. Most people who know me wish I were made up, Elias said dryly. Nyari giggled. It was quiet but bright. She said you were stubborn, that you argued with trees. They started it, Elias muttered. Nyari stopped before a curtain of glowing moss. She touched it, and it peeled back, revealing a narrow staircase descending into shadow. She used to say you were the first human who looked at her like she wasn't a science project. Elias didn't have an answer for that. As he stepped inside, the moss closed behind them, plunging them into the cool blue glow of the subterranean village. Elias took it in. Holograms flickered from walls grown of stone and crystal, projecting moving murals of star charts and plant life. Virelians moved quietly through the halls, heads turning, whispers rising. Nyari turned to him. They won't hurt you, but they remember. Elias straightened. So do I. Dex drifted in behind him, broadcasting a low-toned diplomacy beacon. I would like to remind all indigenous citizens that I am a registered peacekeeping drone, and I come in peace unless sneezed on. One of the elders, ancient and earless from age, gave Dex a long, slow blink and then sneezed deliberately in its direction. Diplomatic crisis averted, Dex muttered. Elias couldn't help it. He laughed. Nyari smiled. The world for a moment felt like it might forgive him. Elias woke to the sensation of something poking his forehead. Something soft, repeatedly. His eyes opened to find Nyari crouched beside him, holding a long, worm-like fruit with an unfortunately enthusiastic wiggle. Breakfast, she said, deadpan. That's still alive, Elias mumbled, sitting up. I try not to eat food that wiggles back. It's traditional, she offered, then added, also hilarious to watch. The fruit flopped from her hand and began inching toward Dex, who immediately activated a low-level shock barrier. I am not a snack, Dex said firmly, or a trash can, or a babysitter. You're definitely one of those, Elias said, rubbing his face. The sleep mat beneath him had somehow molded itself to the shape of his spine, which was either impressive biotech or a sign it had been trying to digest him. Nyari sat cross-legged nearby, chewing her breakfast like it wasn't doing interpretive dance in her mouth. You get used to it, she said. Eventually. Elias gave the fruit a look. Eventually is doing a lot of work in that sentence. The Virelian underground village, if you could call it that, was carved into the roots of the planet, literally. The walls weren't built, they were grown. Biocrystal lattices arched above their heads, glowing faintly in shades of soft blue and moss green. The structures shimmered slightly, adjusting shape and texture in response to light, temperature, and mood. Elias had once seen one of them open a door simply because someone sighed too loudly. He stood and stretched. So, about your mom, Alira. Nyari's chewing slowed, but she didn't look away. You loved her? Elias hesitated. I think I was learning how to. Nyari nodded like that answer made sense. She said you always used half sentences when you were nervous. Dex made a noise that could only be described as a robotic snort. She told me stories about you, Nyari went on. How you fell into the Syncroot swamp and got chased by those flying lizards. How you taught her to play cards but always cheated. I didn't cheat, Elias said. I just had an advantage. She said you always said that too. Silence settled between them for a moment, softened by the hum of the village's living walls and the distant splash of flowing water. Virella had a heartbeat, and down here, you could hear it if you listened. She didn't die because of sickness, Nyari said finally. She was trying to stop something. Elias turned sharply. Stop what? I don't know, she said. She never told me. Just that the sky was beginning to open. That the old machine was waking. Elias frowned. You mean the planetary gate? That thing was shut down before I left. Nyari shook her head. She said it wasn't sleeping, just pretending. That sent a shiver down his spine. Elias looked over at Dex. Do we have satellite coverage of the equatorial ridge? Dex chimed. Only partial. There's interference from the magnetic storms. Same ones Command wanted you to check out, if you recall, between awkward family reunions. Elias ignored the jab. I need a map overlay. Terrain shift since last scan. If there's movement, even seismic, I want to see it. Dex projected a 3D model in midair, spinning with faint lines of red across the equator. Several of the lines pulsed erratically, like veins under stress. That's new, Elias muttered. That's worrisome, Dex corrected. Nyari leaned closer, eyes narrowing. That's where she used to go, when she left for days. She was trying to shut it down again, Elias guessed. Alone. Nyari looked at him. She was never really alone. She carried you with her, in her mind. Elias didn't have a response for that. He reached into his pack instead, pulling out a data crystal. I recorded part of the shutdown sequence years ago. Might be something in there we can use. You're going to stop it, Nyari asked. I'm going to see what it's doing, he said. Then figure out how to make it stop asking questions. Dex rotated. A sound and responsible strategy, sir. Also how you dealt with that customs official on Mars who asked about your contraband coffee. Hey, that was medical-grade caffeine. Nyari tilted her head. What's caffeine? A human survival fluid. Nyari smirked. We have Zog-Zog juice. I've tasted Zog-Zog juice, Elias said grimly. It tastes like fermented regret. Nyari burst into a laugh that echoed down the corridor. Later, they passed beneath the Hall of Memory, a vast chamber where holograms of ancestors flickered in a dance of stars and color. One form pulsed brighter as they approached, a tall woman with a halo of light around her head, long ears catching the shimmer like sails. Elira. Her voice was recorded, distorted slightly. If the sky opens, you must be the lock. Do not let them in. Nyari stared. I never saw that one before. It's a triggered recording, Elias murmured. She hid messages in the memory matrix. He reached out and touched the projection. It shimmered, and another line of her voice whispered through the room. The fire will return. If he comes, guide him. He will be angry and tired, but he will still care. Elias turned away, jaw tight. We need to leave, now. Dex sighed theatrically. Ah, yes, the familiar scent of escalating stakes. They departed within the hour, heading toward the equatorial ridge in an old glider Elias found parked under a root canopy. It barely held together, powered by photosynthetic panels and hope. Nyari rode behind him, arms gripping the seat, wind in her face. The planet spread out beneath them, wild and dangerous and ancient. And somewhere down there, the past was waking up. Dex hovered alongside them, scanning the ridge. I'm picking up a resonance pulse ahead, and also a lot of bat-shaped things that may or may not be actual bats. I hate this part, Elias muttered. What part? Nyari yelled over the wind. The part where we find out if I was really the hero in your mother's stories. The wind picked up. Or just the cliffhanger. The glider groaned like a tired grandparent with every jolt of turbulence. Elias gripped the controls, which were clearly designed by someone with no respect for ergonomics or mortal hands. The ridge loomed in the distance, jagged like broken teeth on the edge of the planet's equator. Above them, the sky shimmered with ion trails, purple streaks of electric chaos curling like smoke across the stratosphere. I'd like to file a complaint with the Planetary Design Committee, Elias muttered as they hit another vertical dip. Under unreasonable topography. Nyari clutched the seat behind him, laughing. You sound like her. Elias grunted. She laughed when I panicked too. Dex zipped beside them, scanning the landscape. Vibrational frequencies spiking. I'm detecting a wave pattern consistent with dormant tech reactivation. Elias tilted the controls. So she was right. Something's waking up down there. Or getting up to stretch and terrorize the locals. Hard to say. I did pack a diplomatic flag and an emergency cupcake. They landed roughly, if landed, meant scraping the glider into the dirt until it whimpered to a stop. The ridge was quiet, too quiet, not in a poetic way, in a nothing living wants to be here way. Nyari stepped out and looked around. It smells like metal. Elias knelt and touched the ground. Warm, buzzing faintly, like it remembered electricity. We're close. They followed a narrow fissure into the rock, descending deeper through a series of ancient tunnels. The walls were etched with alien script, Aelira's language, but twisted, corrupted. The symbols shimmered in faint red light, pulsing like a heartbeat with an arrhythmia. Dex's voice dropped. There's an energy signature ahead, and a sarcasm deficiency. I don't like it. Nyari pressed her hand against the script. It shifted slightly under her palm, as if recognizing her. It's Virelian, but older, before the War of Skin and Light. That sounds inviting, Elias said. Next you'll tell me there's a doomsday device powered by bad decisions. Dex beeped. Confirmed. At the bottom of the passage, the air opened into a vast chamber. It was not built by hand. It was grown, engineered. The walls pulsed with layered circuits embedded into the organic stone. Floating above a dais in the center was a monolith, a shard of black crystal the size of a shuttle. It hovered with impossible stillness. Nyari gasped. She called it the Anchor, said it was older than the stars. Elias stepped forward. I've seen these. On a mission to Androlus 4, a tech race seeded them. Catalysts for interstellar portals. Most of them failed or went dormant. We never figured out who made them. The shard pulsed once, low and deep, like thunder in the bones. Dex buzzed backward. And that one just noticed us. Suddenly, the walls around them shimmered and formed a face. No, not a face. The suggestion of one. Angular lines shaped into a visage that flickered and distorted as though it hadn't quite remembered how to be human. It spoke, but not in any language they recognized. It was emotion layered in sound. Elias staggered back as words slammed into his mind like bricks. Arrival, anchor, breach, recursion. That's not creepy at all, he muttered. Nyari closed her eyes. It's asking if we're the key. Elias frowned. How do you know that? I don't. I just heard it. In my head. The shard pulsed again, faster now. Something in the chamber began to unfold. Panels along the walls peeling back to reveal rows of machinery. Tubes hissed. Gears rotated without touching. The air rippled with a static charge. Dex flipped on full sensor mode. We have about 6 minutes before this entire chamber starts broadcasting. I don't know where, but it'll be big and probably interrupt someone's dinner. Broadcasting what? Elias asked. Coordinates. It's trying to open a gate. Nyari turned to Elias. Can we stop it? He hesitated. Maybe. If I can find the control matrix, or an off switch, or, I don't know, throw a shoe at it? Dex projected a schematic. There's a central relay node beneath the shard, but the interface requires Virelian DNA, Nyari said, stepping toward it. A brave idiot, Dex finished. Elias grabbed her wrist. Nyari, no, we don't know what it'll do. You're right, she said, but she gave me this. My mother knew this might happen. She left me behind, so I could be the key. Elias stared at her, torn between protecting her and trusting her. Finally, he let go. Okay, but if it tries to melt your brain, I'm yanking you out and grounding the entire planet. She placed her hand on the node. The chamber exploded with light. Not fire, not force, just knowledge. Images, visions, of worlds burned, rewritten, rebooted. Ancient civilizations reaching too far. The anchors left behind as doors, as traps, as beacons. The monolith was not a machine. It was a message in a bottle. A flare, a scream disguised as a whisper. And now it was awake. Nyari staggered back. It's not just a portal. It's a seed, a starter code for whatever comes through. Elias cursed under his breath. So what comes next? Dex blinked red. Something answered. From above, the chamber ceiling trembled, then cracked. Stone fell in chunks as the monolith rose higher, drawing power, feeding off the air itself. Wind, sound, gravity, all reversed briefly like someone had flipped reality's power breaker. A beam shot skyward through the shattered rock, into the clouds. Elias looked up. I think we just rang the dinner bell. Nyari stepped beside him. She tried to stop this alone. Elias clenched his fists. We won't make that mistake. Dex rotated defensively. I suppose diplomacy is off the table. Dex, Elias said grimly, clear all encryption locks. We're going to need weapons, and possibly a bigger glider. Dex's lights pulsed nervously. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Elias allowed himself the ghost of a smile. I've missed saving the galaxy with zero preparation. Nyari smirked. I see what she saw in you. Above them, the sky split, and something stepped through. The thing that stepped through was enormous, not in the towering skyscraper-sized way that horror stories like to exaggerate, but in a way that made Elias feel like he'd just witnessed the punchline to a cosmic joke he didn't understand yet. It was shaped like a mantis, but with limbs folded in unfamiliar ways, and skin that rippled like molten glass. Its eyes were, or weren't, there, depending on how you squinted. Its arrival came with a silence so loud it pressed against Elias's eardrums, like a vacuum full of angry whispers. Dex tilted midair, scanning rapidly. Good news, it appears to be unarmed. Bad news, it's made of particle phase matter and has the energy signature of a small sun. Also, it might be looking at us. It doesn't have eyes, Elias hissed. Yeah, well, it might be thinking at us aggressively. You ever felt judged by geometry? Nyari stepped forward before either of them could protest, her voice calm. Who are you? The creature flickered, and the air bent. Not just sound waves, everything. Gravity hiccuped. Elias floated half an inch off the floor before his boots snapped back to reality. A voice spoke, but again, not with sound, with concept. We, our return. Elias glanced at Dex. That's ominous. I preferred when things had names like Greg. Nyari tilted her head. Return from where? The creature shifted. Time bent around it. Elias was sure of it. His chrono implant jumped forward 3 seconds, then back 2. He felt slightly older, but also mildly hungrier. Return from below light, beyond pattern. Elias frowned. Okay, so, not from this dimension? Dex chirped. Not even from this rulebook. Return raised one limb, an arm or antenna or thought appendage, and pointed toward the monolith. You opened anchor. Code completes. Seed awakens. Gate aligns. Right, Elias muttered. So they were using it as a voicemail. Unfortunately, we picked up. Nyari's brow furrowed. What happens when it aligns? Return shimmered again. This time Elias saw flashes, burned skies, rewritten planets, memories overwritten like files on an old drive, civilizations reduced to data, then recycled. Assimilation, Dex's voice cracked slightly. Just to clarify, are we the ones being assimilated, or is this like a party invite? Return bent low. All reset. Perfection follows. Elias turned to Nyari. Yep, definitely a cosmic tech cultist. Great. Your mom dated space Jehovah's Witnesses. Nyari elbowed him, hard. Okay, let's focus. How do we stop it? Elias asked. Return began to rise, its form destabilizing. Cannot stop. Signal sent. Gate calls kin. You are pattern residue. Fleeting noise. Dex hummed. So polite. A pulse of energy surged from the monolith, brighter than before, shooting straight into the clouds. Elias could feel it now, like standing too close to a launching rocket, except the force pressed inward instead of outward. We need to break the gate code, Elias said. Force it into recursive error. Loop the startup sequence until it crashes. Nyari frowned. Is that possible? Dex spun midair. Sure, if you're a lunatic. I'm experienced, Elias snapped. Return took a step forward. The floor cracked beneath its weight, or maybe it cracked out of fear. Either way, Elias pulled his plasma tool and aimed at the monolith. Dex blinked red. You can't just shoot a transdimensional anchor crystal. I can try. He fired. The bolt struck the shard and disappeared, like the light had been swallowed or retroactively denied permission to exist. Elias cursed and stepped back. That was my favorite setting. Nyari stepped beside the note again. We can rewrite it. My DNA unlocks its interface. If we enter the wrong command, we could fry your brain, Elias said. We could stall the process, she said, ignoring him. Dex whirred. She's right. A temporary corruption in the anchor's protocol loop might give us a few minutes before it opens fully. Just long enough to run away screaming, I suppose. Ilias paced, glancing at Return, who now looked more like an abstract sculpture melting into the air. Okay, Dex, build me a virus. I need something that mimics the anchor's codebase, but corrupts it with recursive logic. Feed it an unsolvable command. You're asking me to weaponize a riddle, Dex said. Yes, I love this plan. Nyari reached into her cloak and pulled out a shard of crystal, a smaller piece of the monolith, smooth, shaped into a pendant. My mother gave me this. Said it would help me choose. Elias stared. That's a command token. These things only respond to their own kind of logic. That piece might give us right access, Dex beeped. I'm embedding the virus now. It's called Paradox Punch. You're welcome. Nyari stepped up to the interface. The pendant in her hand glowed, and the monolith shuddered, its light flickering. Return hissed, or maybe screamed, in a frequency no one wanted to hear again. Upload it now, Elias shouted. Nyari plunged the shard into the node. The chamber exploded with noise, code, logic, cascading errors. The monolith began pulsing wildly, then slowing. Slower, until silence. Return staggered, its limbs spasming. Then it blinked out. Not vanished, not teleported, unhappened. Dex spun. We did it. We crashed a god. We're legendary. Elias pulled Nyari away from the node. Her nose was bleeding, but she was smiling. It worked, she whispered. She was right. It chose us. The monolith cracked down the center, bleeding light. The gate didn't open. Instead, it folded inward, like a door closing on a room no one should have found. Elias let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Remind me to write a very passive-aggressive letter to the Galactic Archive. Dex beeped. We still have a problem. That signal? Still sent. Just delayed. Elias nodded. Then we'd better prepare. If more of them are coming, Nyari stood, wiping her nose. Then they won't find us unready. Dex projected the galaxy map. So what's the plan now, General Glitch? Elias smiled grimly. Now, we warn the others. We find the rest of these anchors, and we break the loop. Dex paused. Also, I really want that emergency cupcake now. Later. I saved it. Don't judge me. Above them, the clouds began to churn again, and far beyond the stars, something began to stir. The outpost they landed on 3 weeks later was unofficial, which is to say, technically illegal, mostly rusted, and run by an old Silex trader named Brum, who swore he once sold a snoring crystal to an emperor's cousin. Elias believed about 5% of that. The landing pad hissed under their boots as they descended from the patched-together shuttle Dex had rebuilt using pieces of their old glider, the monolith's leftover fragments, and, apparently, a microwave from a crashed research ship. Don't judge the shuttle, Dex said as it made a distinctly organic groaning noise behind them. She's sensitive. Elias scratched his stubble and looked at the small cluster of domes nestled in the crater. Looks like a dust farm. Technically, Nyari said, brushing grit off her jacket, it's a data haven. Brum trades secrets for root beer. I don't even want to know how that economy works. Inside, Brum welcomed them like old relatives he remembered owing money. His eye stalks blinked asynchronously, and he wore what might have once been a uniform, or possibly a curtain. You brought me danger, Brum said, rubbing his palms. I like danger. Keeps the air spicy. We brought you knowledge, Elias corrected. Ancient gate builders, forgotten tech, and, oh yes, a signal that may bring uninvited guests. Brum squinted at Nyari. She looks like her. Nyari froze. You knew my mother? Knew of her, Brum replied. She once beat me in a game of spiral tags and left without saying goodbye. Legendary move. They transferred the monolith's corrupted data to Brum's secure archive, then cross-referenced it against the Deep Drift cartograph. The result was a map, 9 additional anchor sites scattered across the spiral arm. All dormant? Elias asked. Dex chirped. For now, but with the first gate partially activated, the network might sync again. So we smash the rest. Or, Nyari said, we seal them properly. My mother tried to do that alone. We won't. Over the next month, they did exactly that. One anchor in the lava tunnels of Estar 4, protected by thermal parasites who hissed poetry. Another beneath the oceans of Caldari 9, guarded by intelligent plankton who asked riddles about friendship. Elias failed miserably at those. Each site brought new dangers, but also new allies. Engineers, archivists, ancient AIs who remembered the stars when they were still cooling. Nyari spoke at every gate, her voice calm, her presence trusted by the monolith shards. Sometimes she wept after, but each time she stood taller. Dex began compiling a guide. So you've activated an interdimensional beacon, a survivor's cookbook? Elias stopped flinching whenever someone mentioned Alira. The guilt remained, a persistent background radiation. But it didn't paralyze him anymore. He told Nyari about the day he left, about the fight, about how terrified he'd been of being something he couldn't name. She listened without judgment, then punched him in the arm. You're still an idiot. Runs in the family. Their final anchor site wasn't a site at all. It was a ship. Adrift in the Kuros expanse, the Seed Ark floated like a ghost. Built by the same hands that made the monoliths. Powered by dreams, the log said. Literal encoded dreams of its creators, stored in crystalline memory. Inside, they found a message. Not just text or thought, but a full experience. A shared dream. They stood together in that dream, Elias, Nyari, Dex rendered as an unusually shiny toaster, and faced the creators of the monoliths. Beings made of harmonic resonance and structure. They had not meant harm. The anchors were their fail-safes, their attempts to return after a great exodus. But time had eroded context. The fail-safes had warped. Return became assimilation. Signal became weapon. Pattern became prison. Elias stepped forward in the dream. What do we do with your legacy? A shimmering form replied. Bury it. Or remake it. Nyari chose the latter. She used the Ark's interface to rewrite the final anchor's code, changing its function, not to open, but to warn. A beacon that would guide civilizations away from the danger, a library instead of a gate. When they left the Ark, it folded into the dark like a sigh. Dex floated silently for once. What now? Elias asked as they returned to the shuttle, which now had curtains and a strange smell he refused to investigate. Nyari looked out the viewport, her long ears twitching faintly as the stars stretched before them. We tell the stories. We protect the ones who don't know yet. And maybe take a vacation. Some place with breathable air and zero existential threats, Dex added. Brum messaged them later. The monolith network had gone quiet. Galactic signals were stable. No new anomalies. Elias stared at the message for a long time, then turned to Nyari. Your mother once said the stars are full of second chances. Nyari smiled. And now I know why. They set course for a little moon with strong coffee, lazy sunsets, and no ancient alien structures. Just for a while. The universe would still be there tomorrow, but tonight they rested. Together. Ready. Whole.